Hi, and welcome everyone to our stream today with Bancor. This is with me, Upendra. We have Mark from Bancor. I'm Robert, and today we're going to be building specifically on Bancor with Carbon, a beautiful new platform which Mark knows all about, which he's going to share all the details of. And Upendra today will be sharing his screen and building using AI to see what we can do, how we can connect, and what we can do with this with COTI. Mark, for the viewers, Bancor has been around for 8 years, inmiddels, 20, right by now, 2017.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, Bancor.
So,
I mean, it's
yeah.
even a little bit older than that. So,
Could you give an introduction?
depending on,
Yeah.
yes, of course. So one of the key founders in Bancor is a gentleman named Eyal Herzog, and he founded a company called Meta Cafe, which was one of the early like YouTube competitors, back in the day. And one of the learnings from that experience, because MetaCafe obviously, in retrospect, didn't fare as well against the competition that YouTube represented. And what he realized was that the difference in the models in how users explore their own content was the most important thing. MetaCafe was like prescribing certain content for users, right? Sort of the greatest hits of the website. And trying to make that front and center, prioritizing that kind of content. Whereas YouTube was allowing people to explore the weird stuff, right? Like 99% of YouTube's bandwidth is dedicated to the really fringe, or videos with only 20 views. Like that is most of YouTube. And when he learned about Bitcoin, he recognized or categorized Bitcoin as a user-generated currency in the same way that YouTube and MetaCafe content were user-generated media. And so, analyzing the model that YouTube had, effectively won that market with, what he said was that essentially the long tail of user content is what won in social media, and it will be the long tail of cryptocurrencies that end up winning, in these cryptocurrency markets as well, which I think is amazing foreshadowing, right, of things like the meme coin and altcoin economies. Now, the problem with long tail currencies is that before Bancor, there was really no way to establish liquidity for them, right? At the time, there were dozens or hundreds of cryptocurrencies, and today there are millions, right? Like, I'm not even sure if that's an exaggeration anymore. And you could never find a professional market maker to keep those markets liquid all the time, right? It's just impossible. It needs some level of automation, right? Some platform technology that actually facilitates the trading and price discovery of certain assets.
Centralization often.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, it was one of the great ironies of cryptocurrency is that it touted itself as being this kind of protest, right, against against centralized authority, but then still relied on centralized resources in order to create trading for them. So even Bitcoin, which is kind of this champion of decentralization and like the ethos and mythology surrounding Satoshi and its anonymity and so on, really, eventually falls short because the Bitcoin blockchain by itself can't facilitate a trade, in a trustless way. You can send each other Bitcoin and that kind of stuff, but the terms of a contractual agreement between two users to exchange Bitcoin for something at a given price is not there. It requires facilities like Binance and Coinbase and so on to actually make Bitcoin tradable. And so at the time that Eyal was thinking about how to facilitate the long tail of this stuff, Bitcoin was in sort of a transition period. This is when things like the Lightning Network were being discussed, but more importantly, something called Mastercoin and colored coins. which was the smart
Oh, yeah.
contract, the smart contract upgrade, right, to Bitcoin that was being proposed, that never actually came to fruition.
That was 2012 or something, right? Call it coins back then.
Yeah, I mean, it was being incubated for the longest time. And I think that it's mostly the Bitcoin developer community were never really interested in it. Obviously, the venture capitalists were extremely interested in it because of the sort of business opportunities that it unlocks. And so when it failed to come to fruition, this is when Vitalik, I think, got frustrated, because he was a big proponent for the need for smart contract capabilities on Bitcoin. And so in a way, and I think that there's still sort of that bad blood. You can still sort of sense that friction between the Ethereum community and the Bitcoin community sometimes, not all the time. But yeah, Ethereum was kind of a middle finger, right, to the Bitcoin developer community, saying, if you don't launch a smart contract blockchain, I'm going to do it without you. And that's really where Ethereum began. And so Bancor was actually getting ready to deploy its product on Bitcoin's Mastercoin smart contract enabled blockchain. And so when that didn't happen, and Ethereum happened instead, the project flipped. So Bancor is actually older than Ethereum. It's older than smart contracts. It's just that it was never really fully formed, because it was waiting for the infrastructure to be developed first. So yeah, when Ethereum happened, the project pivoted. There was an ICO in 2016, and the Bancor project has lived on since then. The first product that Bancor released was called the Constant Product Automated Market Maker, which was facilitated by something called smart tokens, which that's the nomenclature that's used in the white paper and the communications at that time. But today we know these as pool tokens, right? It's a very saturating idea. And the way it's articulated mathematically, I think, is just one of the most beautiful, simple but also profound concepts. And that's really, it's a Yarl's brainchild. And so I took over leadership of the project in 2022, and I'm so very proud to be spearheading Bancor's continuing efforts. The thing you have to realize is that 2015, 2016, 2017 was a very different time for blockchains and cryptocurrency than it is today. Back then, if you had said that there was going to be a US Bitcoin reserve or something, people would have, they might have even taken offense at the idea.
There was new bits like stablecoins in 2014. There were efforts, let's say, but nothing
Sure.
of the scale as
Yeah,
ours.
nothing of this scale.
No. No legislation. No.
Oh, I remember when I started discussing Ethereum and the what smart contracts represented in sort of abstraction. Back in 2020, I remember getting into an argument with someone over whether or not we would eventually see things like PayPal and Visa and MasterCard use public blockchains. I was saying, it will happen. I'm not sure how quickly, but it makes a lot of sense, because a lot of that legacy infrastructure is still running on things like COBOL databases. And there are very few living COBOL programmers left, so there will be a time.
They are trained. A lot of juniors are being trained for that, to maintain legacy systems within institutes.
Yeah, but I think that eventually someone's going to realize that it's costing too much to maintain those legacy systems when there's already a relatively well-established and secure alternative. It happened a little bit faster than I thought it would. In fact, I still think we're probably a little bit ahead of schedule. But yeah, it's the point. The point remains that the transition from let's say 2018, 2019 to 2025 has been really profound. And so the concepts and the products and things that were appropriate in that time period, they sort of need to grow, right, and catch up to where the industry currently is. And the industry is accelerating so quickly. And so after I took leadership of the project, the first thing I wanted to do was kind of develop the next logical progression from liquidity pool based infrastructure. And And the answer to that is our product, Carbon DeFi. Carbon being an anagram, a deliberate anagram of Bancor. And yeah, it's
we noticed. Yeah.
and yeah, and it's really like I consider it sort of the exchange infrastructure that's appropriate for the time that we're currently at in the the evolving blockchain ecosystem. And it's things like like the privacy technological achievements of like COTI, for example. And as these things kind of mature together, I think that you're beginning to see what was once a technological paradigm that was really only interesting to the weirdos, right? And I was one of them, so I say it with love. But really, cryptocurrency was for
Innovation starts in the
weirdos in
fringes.
2020.
Yeah.
Today, it does. Today, not so much. Like it's I would even go as far as to say that some people think it's boring now. Like it's come that far. And yeah, I think that you kind of need you need to dress the part. And so having things like liquidity pools and these kinds of things, I think was appropriate for its time and a really important innovation. It's still relevant today, by the way. I'm not in any way dismissing how important liquidity pools and conventional AMMs are. But it's not it's not good enough. And so Carbon is kind of the first step, towards realizing what a fully decentralized and sort of infinitely customizable marketplace might look like, right? Something akin to eBay or the NASDAQ or something like that, right? It's moving in that direction.
Would you compare it to, because you mentioned it, like it would be, what will be required for the infrastructure today? So if I look at today, I think the most fastest growing form of exchange right now would be Hyperliquid. Would that be, for instance, a party which could use what you've been building, or how would I interpret it?
No, so Hyperliquid is predominantly structured around perpetual swaps, right? It's a perpetual
Yeah.
futures exchange.
Yeah.
And so the way that you have to understand, let's say the financial instrument that underpins perpetuals is that it has more in common with betting markets than it does with like actual liquidity for things. So like, and that again, I is not meant to belittle any perpetuals exchanges at all. But it's it is a derivative of something else. You can't have a perpetuals exchange without the rails underneath it. So Bancor is kind of much closer to the metal, if you like. It's the actual trading of actual tokens, not just promissory notes or bets on a certain price. For example, Carbon has no oracle. Whereas perpetual exchanges all require and an increasingly low latency oracle in order to function correctly. Carbon can actually be used as an oracle by itself, right? So yeah, it's more fundamental, right? Much closer to the bone than those kinds of abstract exchanges are. But having said that, protocols like Hyperliquid, because they need to liquidate people occasionally, still need to go and find, liquidity, right, for the collateral that they have on the system, at least the ones that aren't cash settled, and things like Hyperliquid don't do cash settlement. So there needs to be a liquidity source somewhere, and so that's kind of where we come in. It's right at the ground floor, right, which can sometimes feel less glamorous, but I think it's also more profound, right? Like it's the sort of work you do for its own sake, right? To to help establish the required infrastructure to make blockchains successful, and that's kind of where I like to operate.
Awesome. To enable others, let's say.
Sure.
Yeah, 'Cause that's what this stream is about. These streams are to on one hand educate, on one other hand to experiment and show what can be done. Um, so Upendra will share his screen and we'll start building using Carbon in this case. And based on this, Upendra, could I invite you to give it a try, and also introduce to us what will we be doing today on Carbon exactly?
Yeah, so like before that, I would like to, I go into the journey in the past, like when I started in the blockchain. I started late, like in 2020s, but listening you guys, all the thoughts come across in my mind what I was thinking when I was in, started in 2020 about the blockchain, how it's going to work, and all the news is coming in the market, what you guys have discussed. So it was really, fantastic to listen all these things. And as the journey of this banker, it's really exciting. And yeah, and talking about the mergers of the blockchain and the news of Vitalik, it all so interesting. And if we talk about the Carbon DeFi, I think we are discussing the Carbon DeFi, the product of Banker today. Before that, like I would like to ask, like, what you think the role the privacy plays in the DeFi market here.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, and it's it's something that I've been discussing with COTI community members and even the COTI like developer team for a little while. So the thing about privacy, and especially the privacy as it relates to active markets, is that you can't have everything dark, right? Imagine if someone said, "Hey guys, we've got a privacy solution, and we're going to apply it to eBay," and everything becomes private, meaning that you can't see any of the things that are for sale. You don't know how much they cost. And yeah, you can buy stuff, but you won't know how much you're paying or what you're going to receive. So you can't have a completely obfuscated market that way. There needs to be, some visible marketplace for people to interact with for the market to function at all. But and you brought up the case of Hyperliquid. One of the things that privacy enables is for people with very significant capital to start interacting with those markets. So there was a person who was, let's say, taking belligerent bets on Bitcoin. And one of the problems that he had was because he was trading with such volume, is that the market would pay attention to him and deliberately move against his positions in an effort to liquidate him. And of course, eventually,
Yeah.
the people that were doing that got their way. And this is why, and this isn't just something that happens on blockchains. This is something that in fact, people with very significant wealth are actually prohibited by law from trading publicly, right? Or at least advertising their positions or trading with that kind of volume. There have been instances in the past where, like, some of the worst rogue traders or best rogue traders, depending on your, how you want to evaluate them, doing like, very cavalier things with like oil futures and things like that that have allowed governments to bring about these kinds of policies to stop this kind of behavior. So like people like Warren Buffett, for example, will generally only disclose their holdings in companies after they've already acquired the shares, because even just saying that they're going to buy these shares because of his, the amount of capital that he controls could be misconstrued as deliberate market manipulation. And so
Yeah.
he's actually
Potential
required by
fraud.
law to trade privately. And the same is true of banks, right? Like, banks don't just sit on their cash. They often, they ubiquitously will, trade in commodities and securities and things all the time. So if you saw like UBS, buying Microsoft stock or buying Bitcoin or something, for the same reason as this guy was being liquidated on Hyperliquid, UBS doesn't want you to see what they're buying yet, right? Because of how much it would weaken their position. And so that's the interesting thing about COTI, is that the type of liquidity, the type of trading volume that you can support on a blockchain that has privacy built into it is astronomically large, right? And I feel like the blockchain world has been waiting for privacy for a long time, and it's mostly been sort of red pilled on things like ZK, which is still today a hypothetical technology, right? Upendra was just saying he remembers 2020, so do I. Polygon's been talking about ZK since
Yes.
before I even got here. And that's, again, like that's not taking a stab at Polygon. Like, the zero knowledge stuff is super exciting. I think eventually someone's going to get a Nobel Prize for zero knowledge proofs. But garbled circuits is an established privacy mechanism. It's been here since the 1970s, and I think it's an extremely compelling answer to what is like a pressing need for privacy today. So it'll be that, like, I think that's what you should expect from privacy. The people who need it are, they're not regular DeFi sort of users or regular financial users even. It's banks that have a mandate, to hide transactions and large investors and institutions and that sort of thing. So I think that we will start seeing a little bit more, of that kind of large scale adoption by relatively few players in the beginning. But yeah, it's that gateway that suddenly opens now that privacy is on the table. And then combined with Carbon DeFi, which provides marketplaces that look and feel and behave exactly the same way that the marketplaces that they're used to interacting with look and feel and behave, should mean that the table is effectively set.
Yeah, and talking about the COTI, that's why I think COTI provided the both type of support. Like anyone can decide the how much privacy they want to implement in their product. Let's say they can implement the private data type as well as the public one. So, as you said, like it's about the user what they want to make private or not, and different products require different approaches. And so today we're gonna be creating something some use cases. If someone wants to create if some beginner who don't have much coding knowledge, he just want to wipe code using new AI tools, and he want to build something on the COTI using a DeFi product like Carbon DeFi, how they can approach. So let me just first open the Carbon DeFi page here, app, so I can show user and we can discuss what they can understand from it. And if my screen is visible.
Yes, indeed it is.
You're sharing.
Yeah, so when a person comes to the Carbon DeFi, they can go and trade here, and they got as I come to the COTI, I selected the COTI chain here. I'm connected with it. If I finds and if I want to buy some USDC using the COTI, right now we got there few options like liquidity position, limit orders. They can place limit order, they can swap, and they can make a a recurring strategy. So as we know, Carbon DeFi from here is not exactly work as Uniswap v3. It has some different implementation. And if you can say a few words regarding the working of Carbon DeFi for the beginners, because like if they're gonna be using AI tool to build using Carbon DeFi, they need to have understanding of the working of the Carbon DeFi, so they can provide a proper prompt to the AI tool and build using that.
Sure. All right. So I think the best way to get acquainted, at least conceptually, heuristically, with Carbon, you'll see that there's a tab at the top there that says Simulate, right next to Explore.
Yeah.
And I think we've got this up and running on COTI. And so what this allows you to do is it's effectively a backtesting tool. So what I'll ask you to do, click the recurring button, and so we can explore what that is. This is next to the liquidity position, yeah. And so you see you get a green ribbon and a red ribbon. And these represent your buy range and your sell range. So, you know, for seasoned traders who are looking at a volatile pair like COTI USDC, you're seeing this kind of like side channel starting to develop. So if you drag that green ribbon down to, you know, where those local bottoms are, yeah, keep going, keep going. Keep going all the way to the bottom. We're going to try and buy the dip. Here we are. And then at the top of the ribbon, drag the top of on the top of the green ribbon, right? So the top border of the green ribbon. That's the one. Drag that up a little bit. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Use the green label on the, yeah, there you go. You got it. Great. And so what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and capture just the bottom part of that price chart. So drag it down so that we're kind of cutting the chart in half, if you know what I mean. Yeah, yeah, about there. Perfect. So what does this mean? What we're doing here is basically creating a very large number of discrete limit orders, right? So large, in fact, that it's approximately infinite. And each one of these orders is, you know, placed at a, you know, according to a certain distribution across that range. And so as the price of COTI, in this case, comes down through that range, we'll be exchanging USDC for COTI as a maker, right? Effectively offering market USDC for COTI. And then if we drag the red ribbon down, we can also select our sell range, right? So yeah, put the cursor right in the middle and just drag the whole thing down, and let's try and capture, yeah, the top of that peak. Keep going, keep going. Bring them like so that they're almost overlapping, right? Yeah, perfect. So a lot of traders have drawn this on their chart patterns before, right? Like I just wish I could set up something automatic so that when I see a channel like this, I'm just always buying in this lower range and then always selling in this higher range.
I
And
can
so
say
what
that.
we're
I've been I have traded like for 2 or 3 years, and I wanted some tools, you know, to automate my strategy like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is kind of where it's going, right? Carbon isn't meant to just be a imitation of the kinds of products that you see on centralized venues, but it's meant to go a little bit farther than that, right? The kind of automation that that traders, I think, are that find desirable is built in to the smart contracts, which is an amazing challenge to actually to build a system that way. But I digress. So what we're going to do now is let's on your mouse wheel just zoom in a little bit, right? So that we're gonna try and you know, so zoom in on the price chart. Yeah, perfect. Zoom out a little bit. And so we're going to try and choose basically the window of time that we want to simulate. So on your mouse wheel, just pull back a little bit. Yeah, keep going, keep going. Let's do, yeah, keep going. Something like that. I think that's reasonable. You can also click on the chart and drag it left and right, but that's fine. Let's just go with this. And so now in the input fields on the right, you can see that we've got a bunch of numbers here. These numbers are automatically being populated from your interaction with that price chart, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to choose, like, in a simulated sense, how much COTI and how much USDC we wanted to commit to this strategy. So let's go, like, I mean, it's a simulation. How rich do you want to be? Let's put a million COTI in there. Why not?
Okay.
There you go. And then for the buy low range, yeah, again, put in 1 million USDC. Who cares?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. And so what we're doing here is we're basically saying how much capital we want to commit to these specific price bands, so that, you know, as the price is coming through, how many tokens we're offering to people who are interested in buying or selling at those price points. So now if you click Start Simulation, which is the green button right at the bottom there, what it will do is quickly render a Yeah, this is exactly how your position would have traded if, assuming things like efficient market and that kind of thing. Now, for some tokens, efficient markets is not a good assumption, but for things like COTI, which are relatively well-established old tokens, high market cap, they do trade relatively well. Things like ETH and Bitcoin as well, right? Very liquid, so the assumptions get very, very good. But you can see here that what it's doing is showing you how your portfolio is effectively denominated as this thing trades. So as the price, you can see, is moving down through that green range there, what's happening is that the market is selling you its COTI, right, as the price comes down. You're offering that, it's effectively a buy wall for the COTI token. And then as the market became interested in taking that COTI back, you're then selling it automatically at a higher price than you bought it for, right? So this is why, especially, when we released Carbon a couple of years ago, we said that it's like automatic buy low, sell high, which is exactly what the goal of trading is supposed to be. But also, like, the market is thankful. Like, without you doing things like this, there would be no liquidity to trade with. So even though it can feel extractive doing this, because you can see, like, here you're getting like a 22% ROI, but the market is glad that you offered this liquidity to it, because the people that sold you the COTI and the people who bought it back aren't necessarily the same person. So it's not like you're exploiting anyone by doing this. Which is, again, it's contradistinct from things like perpetuals, where you're actually betting against someone specifically. Okay, so that's the sort of the general theory. Now, let's go back a screen. So if you click on the back button next to the simulate word, heuristically, I want you to imagine what would happen if we put those liquidity ranges right on top of each other. Right. So as we pull the buys and the sells like closer and closer together, and you can actually do that now, right? Just drag the red one down a little bit and drag the green one up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. Keep going. Right. And now you have an AMM. Right. So once the bid range and the sell range are the same number, you end up with effectively an AMM. And so Carbon doesn't forego, right, the traditional AMM stuff. In fact, it's just a broader generalization of the same concept. So what you can do if you want to provide liquidity that way, because it's still a very popular way to do things, if you click on the liquidity position button, here we are. Now the program's going to set it up for you. So now you get one range, and you can still move it around the same way. It's just that rather than having separate bidding and asking, ranges, now you just have like effectively the one. And you can see that as you drag it around near the current market price, it's calculating for you if you were to provide liquidity over that range at this specific price point, how the thing would have to be denominated. So let's say you're providing liquidity there. Unlike a conventional AMM, because we don't have specific liquidity pools, the system is a little bit more advanced than those kind of early assumptions. You're no longer prescribing a fee tier, right? I don't like this word. I think it badly communicates the specific financial instrument you're buying, but it's the one that the market chooses to use, so we'll just go with that. So on something like a Uniswap v3 fork or Uniswap v3 itself, you would basically have like one or two or maybe three options for like what sort of fee tier you want. Whereas with Carbon, because we don't have formal liquidity pools in the same sense, you can actually just choose any number. So on the menu, you can see that there's there's a set fee tier component there. And there's a couple of buttons that you can click there, like these are the common ones that you see all over DeFi. But you can also just choose any number you want, right? So that field that's got the currently set at 0, just underneath that and to the left. Yeah.
This one?
Go all the way to the right where it says custom.
Yeah,
you're good. Just drag your mouse right. Keep going.
Okay.
Other way. You got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, you got the cursor. Yeah.
Yeah.
So click over those numbers.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
can.
And you're
We
going to
can.
set any number, right? So if you want to set like a 5% fee, which like, no AMM is going to allow you to set a 5% fee, but you can do it here if you want to. Not just 0.5, you can set 5. You can set 20,
Yeah.
right? Well, 20 in this case is a bit too high, but because your range is not narrow enough. But you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So long as your range supports the width that you're going for, you can support that feed here. So these are the kinds of the concepts that I think you need to be aware of when you're coding for Carbon, right? Is that there is a specific heuristic, right? A specific device, programmatic device at the bottom of it, and that thing is called the strategy. Okay,
Yeah.
like that is the element inside Carbon that replaces liquidity pools, and a strategy is composed of a couple of different things. The first one is it has a certain size. Okay, and this is if you're coding for Carbon, you need to understand what the smart contract variables mean. There's a Z term or Z term. That's basically the height of your curve, right? It's how large your curve is. So if you are keeping your range the same but putting more liquidity in it, the Z term is going to go up. And then as people trade with you, the Z value will stay constant, but the balance of your token, which we denominate as Y, will change. So when people are buying USDC from you, for example, the Y balance will go down on USDC, but the Y balance will go up on the token that you are buying from the market at that price. So in this case, during the dips, your USDC balance is going down, your COTI balance is going up, and it's the Y term that represents that specific token balance. And then the other two terms are A and B. A is the difference between the low price and the high price on that chart. And B just represents whatever the low price is or its inverse on the sell side. And so it's really those four constants. Well, the Y isn't constant, but the other three are technically constant. That kind of go into describing how this thing operates. So if you're vibe coding for something, if you're interacting directly with the smart contract and you want to process a transaction directly on the blockchain, bypassing the Carbon interface, obviously that's something that you can do. But you need to be aware of how these things are composed, what they mean, and also how they are how they're represented. So because we can't support infinite resolution on anything, right? Because we have the limits of fixed points. The A and B values do have a limit. Now that limit is ridiculously high, right? I think we support all prices from 2 to the -48 up to 2 to the 48. So that covers, such an enormous variety of different prices and token decimalities and so on. That realistically, I don't think that we'll ever enter into a situation where we regret that specific design choice.
Should cover all market
so this-
circumstances for the next decades. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe forever. And then we also use a compression algorithm on the A and B terms themselves. So those values, whatever the price value is in way terms that you've quoted, and we have an SDK here that will help you
Yeah.
process this information and show you how to do it. You're welcome to bring that up.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And so this SDK shows you how to interpret user inputs and translate them into the language that the smart contract is expecting. So, if someone says, oh, I want to sell my ETH at 2000 USDC, it might surprise you that actually the actual number is much, much lower than that, because USDC is a 6 decimal token and ETH is an 18 decimal token. So you're really selling ETH at like fractions of a cent of USDC on a way per way basis. And so this SDK helps you sort of navigate some of those complexities.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna be start with the with this SDK today, because like I'm comfortable with the TS. There's also SDK for the if someone want to perform from Python, if they know Python, we are going to choose this TypeScript SDK.
TypeScript.
Yeah. And before that, I just had one question. Like, if someone wants to add liquidity in this DeFi, so they got two options here. One is recurring, another is liquidity position, right?
Yeah, this is just for the simulation. So if you click back on the trade tab, so really the simulator is for education purposes. So you
Okay.
actually really have you've really got three different options for straight up liquidity providing. So that liquidity position one that you've got selected now, this is the AMM style one, right? Where
Okay.
you choose certain price bands and the
Yeah.
prices will move back and forth in there. But if you choose, recurring, this is the one that we started with on the simulator. This is where you're choosing specific price bands that you want to trade at. And then if you hit limit, limit is like, you don't want to, maybe you just want to buy COTI, right? And so if you're expecting a dip from here, one last visit to the local bottom before it goes up again, you might say, look, I want to buy COTI if the price goes down, but I'm not really willing to sell it yet. Then you can use a simple limit range to just denominate one of those prices. So if you click that one, you'll see that you'll have just either a sell band or just a buy band, right? You don't need to commit to do both. You can just do one if you want to. And you'll see that there's you can interact with the red bubble, by the way, on the margin of the chart. Yeah, so this is just setting a limit order the same way that you would set a limit order anyway. And then if you flip the toggle from limit to range, which is the right underneath the buy button there, go
Okay.
down. Yeah, right there. Yeah, and you set it to range, and now you've got sort of a special kind of limit order where rather than set a single price, you get to set a range of prices. And so this is useful, for example, if you've got a specific price target in mind, but you're like uncertain if it will get there. So I think we're getting kind of late in the cycle now. A lot of people are thinking, where will Bitcoin get to this time? Maybe one friend says, oh, the top is already in. Another friend says, no, it's going to go to 200,000. Another friend says it's going to go to 500,000. You might say, okay, you know what? Between 200,000 and 500,000, I'm happy to start selling Bitcoin. But rather than choose a specific price there, where like basically put all of your chips on one spot, you can sort of spread them out, right? For the roulette players in the room, you can consider it exactly that way, right? Why bet everything on on the number 4 when you can bet on red, right? Your chances are a lot better. The payoff is smaller, a little bit smaller.
And
In
it's
the case
all
of
done
roulette,
by
it's a lot smaller.
smart contract, right?
Yeah, all done by smart contract. Correct.
Or we can say that it's kind of trailing stop loss.
You can think of it that way. I mean, I choose not to use that vocabulary because I think stop loss has a very specific meaning. In general, stop losses are taking liquidity rather than making, right?
Yeah.
So a stop loss generally triggers. It's a kind of dark market, but not as dark as people think it is. But yeah, it basically pulls it pulls a position from an exchange and then immediately places a market order. And so it flips makers into takers. We don't do that here necessarily. The term that's more accurate is scaling, right? So you can scale into a position and
Yeah.
scale out of a position. And that recurring order behavior is called fading. But it can, it's also called grid trading, right? There's, a kind of ambiguity to how, especially how cryptocurrency people use these terms. But yeah, stop loss is one I tend to avoid just because for me it has a very specific and problematic meaning.
Yeah.
So it's not, I don't tell people it's a stop loss, but yeah, certainly scaling, fading, grid trading, these are all appropriate.
So here, what happens, like one person put a order, and it starts like, if we suggest buying order, so it
Mm-hmm.
start buying COTI from this range to up to this range, and when the limit exceed, like he had 1,000 USDC and he purchased all the COTI from that, then he automatically exited, like everything goes to his wallet. What happened? How it works?
It remains there. So the smart contract holds all the tokens in a vault.
Okay.
But yeah, you don't need to do anything, right? So the the market will take little nibbles at this all the time. So you don't need to wait for the price to clear the whole range. It will do partial fills down to one way of resolution, so long as the gas constraints and use of the blockchain will tolerate it. So there's no really like lower bound, right? Carbon can trade one way of liquidity pretty easily. So it will come down to whatever marginal price is appropriate for that market. Now you can't really predict that, and I have this discussion with users all the time when they say, "Look, I've placed an order and the market price is there. Why isn't my order filled?" Or why did my order get filled when the market price wasn't there yet? Like, why did someone buy my tokens from me at a premium when they could have bought it from Coinbase or something at cheaper? The reality is, market price, we treat it like, I think that people that have grown up in cryptocurrency, they think of it as being this like infinitely resolute line right at a certain moment in time, when in reality it's very fuzzy, right, and very spread out. So Binance or something might be quoting the price of Bitcoin or COTI or ETH or whatever at a specific price point, but actually they're overstating that certainty. In reality, the error bars around that number are very, very high. And it's completely contingent on how active that market is, that you can even determine it with any level of accuracy at all. So yeah, but the point that I'm making is you're effectively offering tokens to the market. And as your liquidity is taken, you become more and more conservative. So the tokens that are at the top of this buy band are cheaper from the seller's perspective than the tokens at the bottom, right? So the people that are first to interact with your liquidity band are going to get a better exchange rate than the people who interact with it last. And the same is true in reverse, right? If you're placing a sell range on the other side, the bottom of that red ribbon is where the cheap tokens are, and then the tokens towards the top of that ribbon are more expensive. So it's exactly the same as like laddering, right? Is what a lot of day traders will describe this kind of mechanism as, where you say, I'll put some limit orders at $100, some limit orders at 105, some limit orders at 110. This is just the continuous realization of that exact same process.
Okay, so if someone wants to develop, if a person wants to develop something on the using Bancor, what type of use case you think like developer wants to build using this Carbon DeFi protocol?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I've been speaking with people doing AI stuff, especially in finance, since before since before it was cool, right?
Okay.
Since before the public launch of ChatGPT.
Yeah, back when AI and finance, or at least trading bots on a blockchain, was something that only like hipsters were doing. But yeah, look, it's exactly the same use case that you're going to find for anyone developing the same kinds of like AI chatbot, Unibot or whatever applications on top of normal blockchains. So, for example, one of the earliest conversations I had with someone about like specifically AI applications on top of Carbon DeFi was that they were looking at adapting a trading signal that they already subscribe to, right? And it's an expensive trading signal. And what they want is for like every time it fires a buy signal or a sell signal, they wanted to basically have an API that would enable them to sort of pre-sign transactions via MSIG or whatever, that would then make those orders for them on the Ethereum blockchain, which is where they prefer to trade, rather than use an API on Binance or something like that. So effectively, whatever you want to do with a trading bot on a normal, a centralized outlet, you can also do here, right? It speaks the same language as how those systems are designed. The only nuance here is that rather than there being a well-defined like order book, like SQL style sort of database of specific orders. Instead, the order book is an abstraction, right? It's it's just said to exist, but there's no actual programmatic component to it. The strategies sort of are the natural realization of that sort of thing. So yeah, I think trading bots in particular is an extremely interesting use case. Also, arbitrage bots, right? So people who are interested in launching their own token have often spoken to me about how to trade their token on Carbon. And this is because a lot of new token projects kind of get stung by their first relationship with a market maker, right? And after that, they would prefer to sort of shoulder the responsibility of managing a market on their own, maybe somewhat naively, not realizing how stressful and time consuming that actually is. But the decision-making process is simple. You know, you want to keep a certain amount of your inventory relatively close to the market consensus price, and keep some of your inventory moving with the current market price. So as long as you have a good idea of what that is, then, you know, moving liquidity around in an order book on Binance should have a one-to-one correspondence with moving liquidity around here as well. So you know, specialist, sophisticated market-making sort of activities translate very, very well to the system, and there are token projects who are trying to develop exactly that kind of application.
Okay, and I think for the beginner or the person who want to develop, for the developer, the best point to start is using Carbon SDK, right?
Yeah, the SDK, like, you know, this was built by our head of engineering, Doron, and I think it's a spectacularly good SDK, honestly. And as you've pointed out, there are two versions of it. So if you don't like TypeScript and you know, want to model something using the robust numerics of Python, then we've got an SDK in that language as well. But yeah, this really is the you know, the universal translator, right? The Babel fish for how to interpret not just the smart contract language, but also the mathematics and like higher concepts that Carbon represents. SDK is the best place to start. We also have a dedicated Bancor developers you know, community on Telegram, and so anyone who is, you know, engaging with this stuff and is interested in developing on their own, vibe coding or not, right? Doesn't matter. You can bring your questions to the Bancor developer Telegram channel, and they will be answered. Sometimes not right away. We're very busy as well, but eventually we get around to answering pretty much every question.
I think our AI tool we have some questions today, and let's check out how it performs. So for that, let's just, you know, to provide the context, I think we have a documentation of this SDK present, the functionalities which we need to use while making a trade or adding strategies, removing strategies. And if I check the documentation, it clearly says the first step provides here, you know, getting started. So there's a constructor on the and then you need to sync data, and then you can manage the strategy. And also we have a documentation for Carbon DeFi. I think we can provide this documentation to our AI tool to understand how to interact with it, and we're gonna find out if the AI tool can interpret how to make trade with the Carbon DeFi contracts using this SDK or not. Or we got some examples here. When we open the Carbon SDK, here is a demo example. We can also use this example to fed AI to find out how these scripts are working and how it can use these scripts and this understanding to create some cool scripts for the for the developers to understand properly how to interact with it. So I think the best choice, as I gonna be using Cursor AI today, so I think the best choice is to clone this repo and let Cursor understand this code, this demo code, and then we'll give the prompts to create some trade on that. using that, and we'll try to know how our AI tool build and behave with it. And if someone wants to wipe code, he's a beginner, how they can navigate. So let me just clone it quickly. Okay.
Yeah, Mark, you said either vibe coding or not, but I expect at one point it'll become a vital part of any developer eventually. So, at least as a tool.
Yeah, I as a tool certainly. I think I said this at your event in Bangkok. You know, I'm skeptical of AI tools, but I'm not a I'm not too dissenting from the overall consensus, I think, around people that use these things. I use AI tools every single day, right? Even in coding. I would even say that some stuff ends up being vibe coded to some extent. But it's not, I think that what people often misrepresent about it is this idea that you can like talk to it the way that you would, I don't know, another person. Like I don't know what your guys' experience with these AI tools is like, but it's almost like you need to sort of corner it. Like you have to sort of paint it into exactly the state
Yes.
that you want it to, and then it produces stuff. Like and sometimes like if you get your prompts just right, you can like one shot this like amazing like amazing class or something and get exactly what you want. But then, as the conversation goes on, and it's a behavior I'm still trying to understand, like the longer the AI works on a single task, the worse it gets at it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, it
it does
starts as,
happen. That's why you apply versioning, and that's why you do rollbacks if needed,
yeah.
or a fresh prompt at one point to continue where you left off.
Like cursor
Yeah,
Yeah,
always says, like after long prompts you need to move to the next chat and start from that. Like if you have built some part of feature, what you can do, you leave that chat and move to the new chat if you are going to build new feature, because like the context window increase a lot, and then AI start hallucinating with it. And yeah, still as you says, there's a concern like how AIs are behaving. That's what we are on the live we are checking how it behaves with our with different projects. Like we have done so much live stream on the COTI, how anyone can provide a proper prompts to build something on COTI. And we are going to explore Carbon DeFi today.
perfect.
And as you can see, like I have cloned that you know let me cut this. I kind of clone this and I opened this demo. It got it already has readme, and it kind of uh, provides a demo.ts file. It, I guess, provides how you can fetch the information from the carbon controller contract, which is the main contract anyone gonna be interacting. And you can, as you can see, you can filter the strategies and queries the pairs and all. So first we gonna be trying to run this from ourselves, because it already we build, and we're gonna be using the readme from here. What we need to do, we need to provide the provider URL here. So for our case, we're going to be using COTI, so we will provide the COTI mainnet. Before that, I guess we need to install the dependencies. So open the terminal. And here in our demo, we need to provide the RPC link of our blockchain. You can also get it from the documentation section of the COTI, the RPC link. And we also need to provide the contact addresses. So let's just try to find out where we can get the contact addresses. So in the contact section, you can get the deployments. It has all the addresses of different chains. In the COTI section, you can get the different contact addresses. I have already, I already have that, so I'm gonna be directly pasting it. But you can get it like the main contact address is gonna be the Carbon controller. When you open the dash, this is the main contact address. So let me just replace.
Upendra, could I ask you to zoom in a little bit for the viewers?
Okay.
For the readability. Yeah.
Let me try.
That's already way better. Yeah. If it doesn't fit, we can, the middle would work.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be good. So, and in the README, if you check after installation, you need to provide then you can run npm run dev. Kind of, I think while zooming, I have replaced something. Let me copy that again. Okay, so it works. And what information it provides, like we goes for approximately 1000 block. Let me check. Yeah, so here what we have done, we have fetched the 1000 block, and in the 1000 block it says it found 2 strategies update and 1 trade events. So on the COTI blockchain, for past 1000 blocks, it happens 2 strategies update, 1 trade event, and it provides you all the information. So Mark, I think this data is important to make a trade, right?
Yes, indeed it is. So what you're looking at here, so yeah, see where it says here's a breakdown of the decoded strategy. So I can't confirm whether or not it's decoded it correctly, obviously, but it looks like it has. So that's great. So let's think about what it's actually saying here. So the liquidity number that you see there, this is the token weigh amount, right? So that's why it's such a large number. But usually, you have to put a decimal place in there after 18 after 18 trailing digits. Okay, then the lowest rate, highest rate, and marginal rate. So if this was a buying order, right, which is kind of the natural way to think about it, the highest rate is going to be like the top of that green ribbon, right? So if we were bidding on some token that's currently at $1, and you're saying, look, I'm willing to start buying it at 95 cents, then that would be the highest rate, right? And then the lowest rate is whatever, however low you think you can buy it for, right? So if I'm speculating on this token and I think it's going to get to at least 95, but maybe it's going to go all the way to 80, right? 80 cents. Then I would say that's my range. and that would be the highest and lowest rates there. Now, as my liquidity is taken, right, as I'm buying that token that's currently coming down in price, the marginal price is the point that we're currently at between those two, between those two barriers. So you can think of it as kind of like the progress of your bid or your ask. Now, the important thing that you have to know about the conventions in Carbon is that we always use whatever token is associated with a specific order as the quote token, right? So it's almost like they're both bidding orders, but sort of in the opposite direction to each other. So paradoxically, or at least maybe a little bit confusingly, because there's an ambiguity as to like who we should ask, which way around we should denominate quotes and bidding prices, right, and asking prices. So, for example, do you quote the euro in terms of US dollars, or do you quote a US dollar in terms of euros? Because they are different numbers, right? They're not the same number. And so in Carbon, we always do both, meaning that the asset that you have a balance of is always the quote asset. So if you have euros in that specific order, then the price is measured as euros per whatever the other asset is. And so on the other side, it becomes the quote asset. And so it would be measured in whatever the asset is per euro. And so you do get this inversion. This is very common, like for people that have done a lot of trading or built wrappers for trading interfaces before will be very well acquainted with this concept and how frustrating it is. Especially people that have done Forex, for a living. This is like, I think, one of the most frustrating aspects of it, and can be very confusing. And so we've adopted a standard that I think is relatively easy to understand. Whatever the token is that you have a balance of, so that liquidity that you're seeing there, whatever that liquidity is, that's the quote token. And it'll be the same on the other side.
And like if we try to find out this strategy on the app, I think we can find there, right?
Yes, absolutely. So let me see how it's decoded. So it's decoded. The specific variables that the SDK talks about. But if you check, like if you put that token address like into the app, and have a look at the people that are making markets with that token, you should be able to find the strategy pretty quickly. But it looks like Cursor might not be giving you the owner of that strategy, but it is in the event, right? There is a specific field that tells you which, it's the NFT that liquidity corresponds to is owned by a certain address, and that will tell you who owns it.
Okay, so what I gonna do, like why I'm emphasizing on that, because like in this live stream it's quite for beginner, and to understand the working of this Carbon DeFi, which kind of new for the person who worked on the Uniswap, to understand the working. Otherwise it's difficult to build something on that if you don't understand this DeFi protocol,
Exactly.
even
Yeah.
using the cursor, because you don't know what prompt you're going to be doing, and whatever cursor going to be providing you can't understand. So that's why I'm trying to correlate with, and I also try to show how things work here. So what I can do, and we can ask the cursor, we can move the cursor in the ask mode, and we can ask the cursor like provide this result in the chatbot, and ask uh, as a beginner, explain the result we get in this script run. So like let's check what cursor explain us about this, uh, this results. And as it's providing us the result, we can also see this on the, as I can see, I can understand from the Carbon DeFi, the contact address which has so many e's is representing the native token, right? Like here COTI in this case.
Correct. Yeah.
So we got the strategy between the COTI and another token. We can find out the name of the token from from the COTI Explorer. Let's just find out the link of, if you don't know the want to find out the RPCs and link of the COTI, you can find it from the COTI documentation, or you can also ask the COTI AI. Ask AI. There is a ask AI in the COTI documentation, and if we open the scanner and paste this address, yeah, this is G COTI token, the COTI governance token. You can also find out the tokens present in the COTI right now, the list of tokens. So if we try to go to the app and explore, right,
Correct.
between the COTI.
So tell you what, click on, so see, you've got these, so these cards that you're seeing in front of you, these are strategies, right? These are the visual depictions of that information that you were just looking at on the smart contract. This is literally like lifted from events and processed by a backend. See how there's like a little chart, like next to the wheel, next to the gear. If you click on that, it will like show you the trading history associated with that specific position. Yeah, so click on that. Okay. Now, what you're seeing is all of the events, right, that this specific strategy has emitted since the time it was created, and a couple of like the key points, right, the most popular points are shown on that chart. But if you have a look in your browser, you'll see that there's a number in there right after strategy, right? So in your address bar on the browser, see there's a number, everything between the / after strategy and the beginning of the question mark before limit. That is the strategy ID. And so if you go back to cursor, you'll see that it was giving you a strategy ID number. You can actually just paste it over the that number in the browser. It will take you to that strategy ID, and then you can inspect it for yourself using your browser.
Okay, let's just try to find out the strategy ID here.
Yeah, so if you, I saw it before.
Um,
It was in the white text. Keep going, keep going. Where is it?
okay.
I was literally looking at it while you were talking. But yeah, there will be, maybe can you go Control F and look for strategy ID?
Yeah, I guess I also looked at it, and it was just a ID. Liquidity.
There it
Yeah,
is.
this is
There it is. So yeah, if you grab that and then stick it in the browser, exactly where those number is.
this
So
one.
not that one. No, it's like
This one.
the fourth element. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then just hit enter, and it should take you directly to that strategy.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, it's between G COTI.
Yeah.
So now, if we try to understand what these numbers represent in this chart, like A, B, Z, Y.
Yeah, so happy to walk you through that. So this is, so remember, we're talking about fixed point implementations here. So there's a compression algorithm here. So the heuristic, right, is that the Z value, think of that as being like all of your liquidity when your position is full, right? That's Z. Then Y is the drop, right? That's like as your position is traded with, the Y balance goes down. So it's kind of like your progress bar, right, through the strategy. So the Y value is kind of like a percentage, kind of, right? Y will always be a number between 0 and Z, right, or Z if you prefer. when y is 0, that means you got no tokens left because people bought them all. And when y is equal to z, then your current marginal price is the highest price, right? The most aggressive price of the strategy. Now, A and B are, like I said, like we've got a heuristic. A is how tall, right? How wide that strategy is. So let's say that you were placing a range between like $1 and $1.01. A would be a very small number. And as you stretched the that ribbon up, A would accumulate and get bigger and bigger. It's a measure of the distance between the high price and the low price of a range. And B is just whatever the lowest price is. Now, I am oversimplifying things a little bit here because I have to. How A and B are actually calculated, and they do represent those concepts, by the way. I didn't make that up, but not directly. What we have to do is we take the square root of whatever that price is, and then we multiply it by 2 to the power of 48. And then we take the 48 most significant bits of that. And so you've got 6. So if you take that number and represent it in binary, so do this for me. Take the B term.
B.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take that number and get cursor to divide that by 2 to the power of 48.
We can do easily with the chat GPT. I don't. Yeah. So divide. Okay. With 2 to the power.
2 to the power of 48. Now this is going to generate an extremely small number in this particular case, and it's because we're missing an important step. Great, good, yeah. Okay, great. So very, very small number, right? Well, I mean, not super small, but pretty small. This isn't actually the number that we want, and it's because the composition of the bits here that are being represented as a decimal number is actually an oversimplification. The first 6 bits of this number is an exponent. So now ask ChatGPT to convert that number into binary.
Which one? This 0.76?
No, the first one before you divided it.
Okay. Sorry. Convert and binary.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so this is the actual number that you see in the smart contracts, right? It's just a skin, right? An automatic translator that converts it into decimal for you. But this is the actual number in the smart contracts. The first 6 digits are an exponent term. So what I want you to do is highlight everything from right to left, leaving off the first 6 digits. Yeah. So that number there is the number that we're going to use. So take that number and paste it in the Ask Anything bar for ChatGPT. Yep. So just paste it there. Then take the first 6. Good. And that's your exponent. So now tell ChatGPT that you've got 2 binary numbers here, and you want to multiply the long one, right? The one with lots of digits. You want to multiply that number by 2 to the power of the small number. Yeah. So because you've written a 2 there, it's thinking that you still want decimal. But you have to tell it that actually this is a binary number. Yeah, so tell it that the long number is the mantissa, and the 6-digit number is the exponent. Yeah, you know what? I can write this in the chat.
Okay. No.
Can you?
Where this long number is?
So here, yeah, use this prompt. Okay, so say, hi chat, look at this number, right? And whatever that number was, I'm just going to say insert number, and say that the first 6 digits of this binary number are its exponent, and the rest are its mantissa. What is this number represented in decimal? It should be able to do that.
Okay.
And so yeah, this is the compression algorithm. So we basically take a 96-bit number, which is what happens in the backend. This is what happens in your browser when you're communicating with the app. And then we keep the 48 most significant bits, and so we end up with a 54-bit number in the contract.
Okay, I need to provide the whole number, right?
Yeah, provide the whole number.
I think we involved so much advanced concepts here. We'll try to make it simplify for the beginners, coming to the point when beginner can understand how to build on the Carbon DeFi.
It did it. That's it. That's the right answer. It did it perfectly well. So there's so what you have to realize is that this binary number in like an embedded systems model is essentially using scientific notation, right? We're using a like that. We're actually kind of faking a floating point number. But it's a very well defined, right? So it's not infinitely flexible the way floats are in Java or Python or something like that. This is a very contained version of a floating point system. And so what it means is that you can represent dramatically different prices, right? Because that exponent value can be anything from 0 up to whatever 6 ones is in binary. And you're multiplying it by 2 to that power. So it's you get a very, very wide range of effective prices. But what you've done here is now that number that you've produced is the result of taking the square root of a price and multiplying it by 2 to the 48. So this is the decoding, right? This is how you decompress the number and get back to the representation that it would have been in when the user provided it on the front end. If you like, if you go to the Carbon DeFi website, I actually have a blog where I explain exactly this. So go to carbondefi.xyz. So if anyone on the call is interested in exploring, how that compression and decompression algorithm works, and especially like what the consequences are from an accuracy and precision perspective. Carbon, it's ON.
With an O.
CARBON.
Okay.
Carbon DeFi.xyz. If you like, I can paste it here for you.
No, yeah,
Yeah, you got it. So click on that. And then at the top, see it's got blog. Yeah.
Yeah, I read some blogs there.
And you scroll down, you're looking for a picture of like an old man in front of a chalkboard. It's like one of my first AI generated images. This is like early DALL-E. Keep going, keep going, keep going. It really stands out, like it doesn't belong there.
Okay.
You're almost there. Right there.
Yeah.
Click on that. Okay, so this completely elaborates the compression decompression algorithm that we use in order to achieve what we achieve there. So, and we've even got code snippets here, right? So I've got the it's medium based, right, or Figma based, so I couldn't actually put the LaTeX formulas there. But if anyone wants them, I can just send them this document. But if you keep scrolling down, you'll see that there's a Python implementation depicted there. Keep going. That actually shows you how to do it using bit shifts, which is a very convenient, very fast way to do stuff. Sorry, I know it's a long blog. I don't do short form anything. Right.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time to put that together. Yeah.
Keep going, keep going. You're almost there.
Okay.
Right there. There you go. So see the code example above? Keep going. Up. Not that one. That's just the table. You missed it. Go back.
Okay. This one.
There. Right. So this is I think from a, yeah, it's got self in it. So this is from a class that I have that, you know, I do the formal verifications with. And obviously I've added some like more notes and things to it to try and make this as digestible as possible. But yeah, this is showing you exactly how the compression decompression algorithm works. And if you gave that, so for example, if you copy that code section and give it to Cursor and ask it what it means, it will tell you exactly what it means. Yeah, give it the whole thing.
Okay.
It's doing pretty well, actually. Yeah, see, so there's the mantissa and exponent components that I was explaining before, where you've got like a long binary number, but one part of the binary number means something different to the rest of the binary number. And so it's like, this is a relatively well explored concept in like embedded systems. Like embedded systems engineers will be like rolling their eyes at the obviousness of this right now. But yeah, regular people, right, even normal programmers don't necessarily come up against these concepts very often. It's a very niche sort of understanding. But you can see, you know, ChatGPT, which I don't even, you know, ChatGPT is okay, but there are better AIs, is doing a really excellent job of really like breaking this down. And I think that this is like one of the like pragmatic things that, like, remember earlier in this call I said that you kind of have to paint the AI into a corner, right, to sort of prime it for to get ready for what it is that you want to do, that kind of sort of pre-task training. This is the kind of stuff that you can give it, right? Pieces of blog that you're reading, have a discussion with it, ask it questions about what this thing means. And that's going to like shrink the model down on like a very specific pattern. And then when you say, okay, now we want to build an API to interact with Carbon DeFi, it's going to be so much faster, and you got a much higher likelihood of like one-shotting a. I mean, you're never going to get like one shot, but you know what I mean. Something that doesn't require a huge amount of refactoring or code revisions.
Yeah, and let's check like what it provides us, like what ChatGPT Cursor understands from this result. So it says like this script demonstrate how to interact with the DeFi, also how to, you know, convert it into the Uniswap v3 format. And
yeah, so that's interesting. So I just want to comment on that. So yeah, so Cursor's right. So there is a very specific part in the SDK where, because of Uniswap v3's like ubiquity, there's like it has its own conventions, right, on how to describe trading liquidity. And so there's a lot of interfaces that are kind of have Uniswap v3's formalism as like a dependency now. And what we've done here, like there's a part in the SDK that helps to translate between Carbon's parameterization, which is very compact and, you know, more flexible. But if you want to pretend that it's Uniswap v3, like if you wanted to cast it as a Uniswap v3 model, then it's that part of the SDK that shows you how to do that. And that's useful, right? Because you might find on someone's GitHub that they've got a trading bot or something that's set up to use Uniswap v3. And you're like, oh, if only you could use Carbon. If you give this part of the SDK to Cursor and say, look, here's some guy's GitHub that I found. It has these assumptions, but here's how you can translate between Uniswap v3 and Carbon. Then your AI assistant is going to be able to help you like modify or make a new PR or whatever to generalize the script beyond the paradigm that it was originally defined in.
Yeah. And one thing I noticed, like we just go through the only 1,000 blocks here. What we can also do, we can try to fetch all the blocks of the COTI till now. Let's start from the 1 or 0 and run the script, and let's
It might
find out.
take a while.
Yeah, let's just try to find how much strategies to have while we are discussing. Let's the script work for us. So it currently have approximately 2.5 million blocks. Yeah, it's kind of doing it fast, I guess.
It's not doing too bad.
So what are we looking at the moment?
So this
So
is.
yeah,
Go
Mark.
ahead, Upendra. I've spoken too much. You should take this one.
Yeah, so like basically what's happening, like it's kind of syncing with the Carbon DeFi contracts. Like it's going through all the blocks of COTI mainnet till now, minted till now, and it's going to find out the events triggered while creating the strategies or creating any trades on the Carbon DeFi. So it's kindly filtering out the events of the Carbon DeFi contract and finding out how many studies has been built and how many trades has been done there. So if we go through the result, but I don't think we can find out the result because there are so much data here.
Yeah. So in general,
Yeah.
blockchains are state machines. Like the state is known at any one time, but you like first like what you're looking at here is historical data, right? Like
Yeah.
like you said, right? We're going back to block one.
Yeah.
And you would very quickly deplete all of the world's hard drives if you were storing the state at every single block height. So the way that the blockchain community has kind of figured out a way around this is that we just emit events, right? And those events can be relatively small and very easy to manage, store on a backend, and that sort of thing. And so when you pull all of this information from block one to the current block height, what you're actually pulling is just the events that Carbon has emitted rather than the state at every block height. And that's enough information to reconstruct any state that you want without having to store all of that information. You can kind of think of it sort of like how a Sudoku puzzle, right, has embedded in it all of the information required to know where all of the numbers are. You just have to go through that process of actually solving it. And so if if you imagine ink is like really expensive or very rare, you might ask the question like, how can I represent all of the information on a pseudocode grid with the smallest amount of ink, right? And so you would effectively draw a puzzle and then give it to someone and say, look, this is enough information to extract all of the meaning back out of it, right? And this is, I'm trying to speak in familiar language, but it's very similar to things like Hamming codes, and there's a whole field called information theory that deals with this kind of thing. But the events that we're emitting here, they are equivalent to the state of the blockchain at any specific block. You just need to do a little bit of work to recreate the state. And this means that you get to store much smaller amounts of information, and makes blockchains actually useful.
Yeah. Thanks for this great explanation. Like, yeah, like it's kind of the gist or the basic of the blockchain everyone needs to know. And if you talk about, let's just try to give some prompts to the cursor. Let's just try to ask cursor to try to create a script which can make some trade on the using Carbon DeFi. Let's just find out if it can do. but we need to provide the proper context, and for that, first of all, I need to move it to the agentic mode, and I kind of typed the prompt first, like the previously run, as I asked it to you. If we have in a script which is running perfectly fine using the Carbon DeFi SDK, and I want you to create a new script which kind of perform a trade on the Carbon is using Carbon SDK, and I also provided a guide to provide the context. Let me show you here. So if you go to the documentation, here we have managing strategies. So using that, you can create a strategy. It provides you how you can create a strategy. First of all, you need to initialize the SDK here, and then you can call the create strategy function on the contract. And there's also in the documentation, it provides how you can create up and perform a trade. So it kind of you need to first initialize the constructor, and then sync the strategy data, and then generate a trade route for that, and then we can call the compose trade by target or by source transaction. So first I gonna be giving the some prompts to our cursor, and then we'll discuss these steps. So what I have done here, I also provided the link of like this link here completely, so it can have some reference here. And how we do in the cursor, we kind of say like this is a web link to provide a proper reference, and then the task is to create a script which can perform a trade, and I want this script in this environment. What we can also provide, like to trade, we need to select the pairs, like which gonna be the token I gonna be providing to trade for which token. So let's just we can provide the contract addresses of the token. So from here I have COTI, so we're gonna provide the same address, this one. And for the token, I may be wanting some USDC, so we need to find out the USDC address from the COTI. As I said, like if you go to the COTI scanner, blockchain scanner, it has a button of tokens, and you can go down here to find out USDC. Yeah, so this is the address of USDC contract. I'm gonna be providing this to the cursor here, and let's just see what cursor can create using that. And it's gonna take some time, so while then we can discuss what all these steps and what is required, and if all these steps are required for a beginner to create a simple trading trade script. So like as we have discussed, anyone who have uh, some information regarding the trade, like he has get some bot, want to create some bot and have some idea this trade, or got some tips from the bot, like want to trade with so how he gonna be interacting with the Carbon DeFi contract to make a trade. So is this the right path he should follow if he's a beginner?
Yes, absolutely it is.
So if you try to understand a little bit about this steps, so like a beginner have some idea why we are going to perform all these steps, why they are necessary.
Yeah, why they're necessary is a good question. So you you have to appreciate that the smart contracts are algorithmic market makers still, right? And
Yeah.
so the certain number of there's a certain number of tokens there, and then there are these values. So instead of just the number of tokens, you also have, remember we saw the capital A and capital B term,
Yeah.
and we saw that there is a this way of decoding it. Like it's weird that we're gonna have to use this number somehow in order to calculate how many tokens we can buy at a specific price. And so this is why you need to do it. And so there are, very precisely defined swap formulas that are already in the form required to ingest the variables as they exist on the smart contract. So that's why you need to kind of go through the SDK and see this. It's not enough to say that you know how DEXs work, or you know how Uniswap's AMM or bonding curve works, or something like that, because the formula that you want is the one that is specific to the implementation that's used, right? And that's the process here. And as before, I've written about the mathematics. So if you want to interrogate the math in a more symbolic way, you can do that. But at the end of the day, if you're processing a transaction, you need to use the right formula, like using the same encoding that the smart contracts has. And so that's where this part of the SDK becomes not just useful, but absolutely necessary.
Okay, so if you talk about the constructor, we need to provide some configuration regarding the first of all, we need to provide the RPC URL of the chain we're gonna be interacting with, and then okay, yeah, this part, and then the start data sync part. What this part actually do?
The start data sync.
Yeah.
So this is this is effectively going to be catching up the the state of the chain that you're on. So remember, like if you want to perform a swap, you kind of need to know what these parameters are now, right? Not like what they were last week, because they might have already been traded on, and those prices are stale now.
Yeah.
So syncing the data is necessary, and this is why the RPC provider is so important, because you need to it's like imagine remember when eBay was like really popular back in like 2004, and one of the things that you would do is like sit at your computer and like keep hitting spacebar to make sure that like no one's bidding above you, right? Because if you didn't refresh your browser in time, it could be that someone's already bid over the top of you, and now they're going to win the auction and not you. It's very similar on a blockchain, except that the number of transactions is enormous, and if you want to process a transaction, you need to really know what the current state is, not what the state was before. So this syncing is kind of like that browser refresh when you were sitting at your computer bidding on used mobile phones in 2004.
Okay, and so from that, like they're gonna have the exact positions of the trade right now, and
Yeah, I mean, exact enough, right? Obviously, with a blockchain, there's
yeah.
always a small lag. I think for COTI, where something like I think we get like a 2-block resolution, or 12-block resolution, excuse me. No, I think it's 2. I need to check. I'm confusing. How fast is COTI? What's the block time on COTI?
Let's just check on the ask this to the COTI AI. That's the best tool.
This is the opportunity that you were waiting for.
Yeah. Like, what is the TPS of COTI?
No, what's the block time?
Okay, what's the block time?
But to be fair, I think any Web3 project should have a similar answering engine as part of its docs.
Yeah,
to optimize
Says
search
5
time.
seconds.
Yeah, 5 seconds. Yeah. So I think we'll put like in general, when you're fetching data this way, you should expect to be somewhere between a minute and 2 minutes behind the main chain, but that's generally good enough.
Yeah, and so like this SDK is handling all this for you, and it's fetching all the data from the contract itself, right?
Contract itself and via our backend, right? So a lot of this data is organized. So our backend will collect it from the chain and have it available for you.
Okay, so this from this SDK, it's calling the backend APIs. Like if we are
I'm
going,
pretty sure. Yeah. I mean, it depends. I need to. I actually don't know the answer to be 100% clear, but I suspect because getting data from the blockchain isn't free, and so unless you were paying the RPC cost, I don't understand how you would get it necessarily. And
okay,
so I suspect that what we have, is a public endpoint, and that when you interact with the SDK this way, it will give you some amount of the data.
but I think it's can be from the blockchain because it fetches all the blocks from the contract. With like as we have seen, it fetches all the information uh, regarding the like how many strategies has been created on the blockchain and everything
Yeah.
with this script. So it has all the data here, so it can filter out and get it from the blockchain, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you might be right. Like I said, I'm not 100% certain exactly where the data is coming from, but the point is someone is sending it to you.
Yeah.
Who is sending it? I don't necessarily know, but the data did originate from the blockchain itself.
Yeah, and then we're gonna have to generate a trade route using get trade route data. I think that's the most important important function to make a trade, right?
Yeah,
It will provide you the the route means which strategy you're going to interact or something.
which collection of strategies. So imagine, there are a bunch of strategies that exist all the time. And so if you interact with just one of them, you might end up paying more for the tokens that you're buying than if you split up your trade and like bought tokens from lots of people at the same time. And that's a difficult, I mean, it's not too difficult. What I should say, it's a non-trivial problem to solve. And so there's a fast algorithm that's implemented there in the SDK that will show you how to do that calculation easily. And that's very easily ingested by AI tools as well.
So buy strategies, if like I'm trading with the COTI, I'm trying to buy COT like sell COTI for USDC. So is this the
Yeah, let me show you. Yeah, click on trade, the tab in the top. Yeah, and then go to swap. Yeah, and then put in all of your COTI. Say you want to sell all of your COTI. Don't worry, we're not going to sign anything. Okay, and now see there, just above the button that you would usually use to confirm, there's a little routing option.
yeah?
Click that. Okay, so in this particular case, you only need to trade against one strategy, and this is the best strategy for you to trade with, right? This is the one that gives you the best rate for the action that you're trying to do. So let's X out of that and increase the amount to some number. How rich do you want to be? Move the decimal place a few digits to the right. Trade like a million COTI or whatever.
Okay,
Yeah.
something like
Okay.
that.
Now click routing. Okay. So it turns out this strategy at the moment is the best, the most competitive, no matter how much we want to trade with. But
Okay,
that's still an untrivial solution to come to. So X out of this and let's flip the trade direction. So
and
instead of
how we are knowing like we have one strategy and which strategy we are dealing with? Like how if we have any strategy ID here, how you are finding out like we are dealing with the same strategy every time?
Yeah, that's a really good question. One of the things that we can do is actually just inspect the numbers. But you're right, the UI doesn't expose the strategy ID or anything. Here, I think just to keep it sort of compact and it's not clear where, like, if the user who's performing the trade would need to know specifically the strategy idea that they're interacting with. But that can be exposed. Obviously, the SDK has that information and could expose it. So if you wanted to, like if you said, look, I actually want to know who my strategies are routing through, you could write, a modified version of the front end by way of cursor or something like that, that doesn't just give you this information, but also tells you the addresses that own those strategies. And you can be like, I don't want to trade with that guy. I don't want to trade with that guy. That's something that you could potentially do.
I ask it just because to know like if there are gonna be more than one strategy here in.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So X out of this, and we'll trade in the other direction and hopefully find some other strategies. So instead of sell, click on buy. Oh yeah, that works as well.
Okay, so like just go for the.
Yeah, let's see how many strategies we interact with. So here, right? So there's a lot more liquidity on the other side. And so this is now showing you, okay, for this route, this gives you the best price. If you trade these amounts with these specific strategies, you're getting the best possible rate, right? This is the optimization problem that algorithm tries to solve.
Okay, if I'm understanding is right, like someone has placed some strategy or some order with the range, or someone has placed with the limit, and some orders
Exactly.
gonna be some recurring and all. So maybe if we go for one, for the initial point, the trade is cheaper, but when we take a whole order from one, then it moves to the more expensive side. So it's like trading some amount with one strategy and another with some, so picking up the cheaper side of all the strategies, right?
Exactly right. Yeah, it's always buying the cheapest token, no matter which strategy it's in.
And all this calculation has been done by the SDK, or contract is providing all this information?
No, you don't want to. I mean, you could make a contract to do this kind of stuff, but that would result in an enormous, an unwieldy. That's bad design. So what you want is a really lean smart contract, and then you just teach people, show people how to perform that work. So you basically shrink down to the smallest possible model that you can. All of the exchange components should be in the smart contract. But then how to use the smart contract, anything that you can do off chain, you should do off chain. And that's what the SDK is for.
Oh.
So in this case, it takes things like buy walls into account.
Correct.
When trying to choose for the optimal pricing here.
Okay, and just let's check like how cursor is working here. It kind of done so much like I put it in auto mode, so it's kind of creating a script and fixing it by itself, and it just created some scripts for us, like the trade.ts, if we accept all, and it also run trade.ts, and let's just check what happens here. Great, the script is running successful. It's not finding any strategy for the COTI use. Since it's not, let's update. Okay, it's tried to update. Okay, it's tried to update the contact addresses. And
it wouldn't
now,
surprise me, by the way, because there are spam filters, for all blockchain stuff, right? Because of DDoS threats and everything else, there are spam filters to stop bots from accessing stuff. It could be that Cursor just submitted a whole bunch of requests and is now on timeout.
maybe let's just find out at the last what it says. A successful initialized Carbon SDK connection with the COTI network, discover active blockchain event, find the same strategy ID. Let's say find out. Okay, I doubt that. So it says it got a strategy, and let's check if this strategy says it's between the USDC and COTI or not. We go to the explore and
just click on any strategy. And remember, it's the little, it's next to the gear, the little, what looks like
Okay,
the little
this,
lines. Yeah, exactly.
and if we paste that,
Hey,
it's
good job.
yeah, it's
You found
kind of,
something.
it's found something, yeah, but not between the COTI and USDC. So
Yeah, I mean, AI has a very good approximate knowledge of things.
yeah, let's just try out to find if we are using the right contract. It kind of created their own contract here. Which of this, if this is GCOTI, we can compare it from.
It actually, like, if you have a look at its code comment, I think it says token that works with COTI. Like, I think it's just looked for and found like a token contract that
Yeah,
is used on the COTI blockchain.
maybe, or it has picked it from the data it fetch.
It could be.
A kind of this contract actually match with this contract and GCOTI we have found earlier, but I gonna ask again. I want to find pair with STC contract only. Try this. Let's try again. It says no liquidity found for this. Maybe this is because we have used lesser number. Yeah, we kind of just used 1,000 block. Maybe it didn't find anything regarding our pair for these number of blocks. We need to increase the block numbers.
Gentlemen, I'm gonna need to. I had a hard stop 2 minutes ago, unfortunately. But if you thought that this was time well spent, I'd be very happy to do this with you again. I could even, twist the arm of one of my engineers to come on with us and see if we can get Cursor actually interacting with the SDK in a meaningful and helpful way.
Yeah, I think for the beginners, I try to make it quite theoretical because we try to create live stream for the beginners using AI to build something, and the most important thing to ask AI to build something for you, to have some knowledge of the product or
Yeah,
the thing
exactly.
you are going to build it. So that's why we keep this the first session quite theoretical, to have the understanding of the Carbon DeFi, and I think you are the best guy to provide that informations, and we can we can
Definitely.
build something in the next live stream. We can plan something next.
Perfect. Yeah, I'd be very happy to join you again.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time today, Mark. And we'll see you at the next one then. And thank you, Upendra, for diving in. We will be back in 2 days with Rafa. And Rafa will be building a system for private business loans on COTI. And we will be back on Friday, where we will talk about AI agents and how to build your own agents with Henry. Upendra, thanks again, Mark. Yeah, I would say it was, especially on the part, the backend part, where Mark explained the details on how this call compression works and how they're working with their floating points. Was a nice deep dive on the aspects which come into play when you want to build strategies, even if you are a developer from another, let's say, trade. So
Yeah.
with that, I'd like to thank everyone also for watching, of course. And Upendra, any last words you'd like to share from your side?
Yeah, I enjoyed a lot to understand how Carbon DeFi work, and a lot of about the blockchain. I think it's going to helpful for the beginner, and if someone wants to learn how DeFi works. And I must say, like, to to build something with the DeFi, it requires time. So uh, we need to spend more time on the live stream. We can plan next live stream for that, and we'll deep dive into the DeFi's on the COTI.
Let's do that. And until then, stay
Stay
COTI.
COTI.